The first card of the year has came and gone. Few good performances from the year to start off the year. Cesar Almeida with his crazy left hand knockout after being rocked himself. Mackenzie Dern getting her first finish win in, I think, 4 years, which I did not realize it had been that long, considering how good she is on the ground. Even though she's been on the bad end of a few finishes
Yeah.
in her last few fights, but this is the combat corner. I, of course, am pressing pawn. That is Austin Jackson and AJ. First card of the year, decent card. Did you watch it? Did you have fun watching it?
Yeah, I watched it. It wasn't too bad. I mean, I watched a whole lot of it. I was with my girlfriend during some of it, and then it's actually crazy. We went to Brahms, and I had it on during Brahms. It was like me, her brother, and his girlfriend. We went to Brahms, and I was like, guys, look at this. And I literally hold my phone up, and it was the Almeida knockout. Like as soon as
Yeah.
as soon as I put it up, I was like, guys, look, and he just bam. It was like, yo. So that
Well,
was actually pretty crazy. Just like
that's how you
randomly
get
pick.
some. That's how you get some people into the sport, though. So I like that.
Yeah.
But with that being said,
That
we are in
guy
the
actually, I'm pretty sure that guy he beat Alex Pereira in Glory. I think
he either beat him or fought him.
no, he beat him. There was
Yeah,
one
that's
guy on
what.
that
Yeah,
card that beat him, and I think it was him. I'm pretty sure it was him.
yeah, you're right.
Hey, watch
So
out.
yeah, but we have bigger and brighter things ahead. UFC 311 is coming up this weekend. Our first two title fights of the year. But before we predict that card on our next episode, we have to predict what champions will end this year of 2025. And we start off with the women's strawweight division. Zhang Weili going 1-0 at UFC 300 over Yang Xiaonan. And AJ, you are thinking she is going to stay and still and end the year
Yeah,
as the champion in 2025. Why?
I mean, I've watched her last three fights now, and I mean, dude, she's just so dominant. Like, genuinely has to be the possibly the scariest woman on the planet right now, besides Kayla Harrison. She is. I mean, there's that clip of her picking up Shaq. I mean, she's just crazy strong. I don't like. Get me wrong. Tatiana Suarez is really good. It's gonna be a really good fight, and it's gonna challenge her because the last two people she fought really weren't. I mean, I forgot she fought at she fought the
Yang
one
Xiaonan,
O'Malley. Yeah, and she walked through her, and then
Amanda
before that,
Lemos, Amanda
yeah,
Lemos.
yeah, she literally walked through Amanda Lemos too. Like she's walking through her opponents, and I really cannot see her being beat. If anyone were to do it, I feel like it would be Suarez. I just think um, Zhang Weili is just too much of a beast, man. Like she's a beast.
I get it. I completely do. She's looked nothing but dominant in her last few fights since getting the belt back over Carla Esparza. But with that being said, she's never faced an opponent like Tatiana Suarez. I know she's coming off a long layoff. Tatiana Suarez has had injury history, but when she is on, when she is healthy, she's undefeated for a reason. Her ground game is like nothing that the strawweights have ever seen before. And the last time we saw Zhang Weili against someone with a good mix of striking and a decent ground game was Rose, who she lost to in that 5 round rematch. Um, I think Tatiana Suarez is going to do really well getting a takedown, holding top position, and really working well, getting control time, winning rounds that way, banking rounds that way. And I think Tatiana Suarez will beat Zhang Weili. And then hopefully, barring any health scares, as we know with her, ends the year 2-0 as the strawweight champion.
Yeah, but the next weight class,
All right, so of course the trilogy at the Sphere, UFC 306, Noche UFC, Valentina Shevchenko wins her belt back, 1-0 on the year, defeating her arch rival Alexa Grasso, and now she's she's up. She could be up for a giant 2025. As she could have potentially the champion that we just talked about before Zhang Weili move up. That's a possibility for this year. And then a multitude of other options out there. AJ, you are not predicting she ends the year as champion, though.
No, like we did in our fights we want to see. I think this will be the next fight for her. I hope it should be. I think she loses. And with women's MMA, I just don't think she'll fight again after the year. Maybe she does, but I think she beats Shevchenko and then just ends the year as champion. Uh, I just see Manon Farrow as a person that I think could handle Shevchenko pretty well. I think it'd be just another decision fight, but I feel like she would win it pretty clearly. Like it wouldn't be like a robbery because like, oh, she gets robbed. I think Madam Furrow would win it pretty clearly. And then, like I said, won't fight again and just end the year's champ.
Yeah, it's fair. I mean, the women's divisions do move a little bit slower. I will disagree though. I think Valentina will remain and still the champion. I think on the feet, there's going to be problems that Ferro can bring to Shevchenko. Her boxing's really clean. She uses her distance really well. But so does Valentina Shevchenko. And frankly, I think where the skill levels separate in this fight is on the ground, and Shevchenko's striking is more than good enough to for her to be able to blend that in well and mask her takedowns with her hands. And on the ground, I think Furrow will have major problems with Shevchenko. I think it'll honestly look a little bit similar to the Alexa Grasso fight that we just saw at the Sphere. I think that's kind of just that direction that Valentina is going towards as she gets a little bit older, a few more years on the clock, and so I think Valentina is going to use sort of a similar approach that she did against Grasso in her last fight. And I think it'll work well for her against Manon Fiorot. And then after that, I mean, as you said, women's MMA with the title fights, they do move a little bit slower than the men's fights. They just don't happen as often.
Yeah.
So whether she fights again one more time, whether she doesn't, I still believe that Valentina and still will remain the UFC flyweight champion. And then
Next
after
up,
that, we've got the
bantamweight
bantamweight
champ.
champion. No disagreeing here.
Yeah.
Of course, going back to last year, Raquel Pennington won the belt in January against Mayra Bueno Silva, and then attempted to defend her belt, but lost in a controversial decision against Juliana Pena. Pena is now the champion, regaining her title back in October. But Kayla Harrison also fought on that card.
Yeah.
Kayla Harrison also fought on UFC 300 and looked scary as hell. I mean, her judo game is unmatched really from anyone that's ever fought in MMA, even potentially Ronda. And she just looks so physically dominating whenever she's fighting these other bantamweights. Even though Ketlen Vieira did give her some problems, it wasn't a perfect performance, but 2-0 in 2024, and I think she's up for a giant year heading into 2025. I think she beats Pena, and then we'll see if she can. We'll see how many of these 135 weight cuts she can do. That is the biggest concern here. It's not a skill issue for me. It is not an IQ issue. Anything inside the octagon, I'm not worried about Kayla Harrison. It is the weight cut.
Yeah. I know it kind of not really on point, but I brought up. I don't know if you heard today. He brought up her fight at 300 against Holly Holm. Did you see Holly Holm actually
It's
is
parting ways with the
no
UFC.
longer
Yeah,
under
parting
contract with the
ways.
UFC.
I hope she
I,
boxes. I hope she
I feel
boxes.
like she might go to the GFL.
We'll see. We'll see. I kind of think it would be full circle for her to end her career in the boxing ring. She, of course, had a long tenured boxing career before entering the UFC. So I think it'd
Yeah,
be really cool for her to put the gloves back on, the boxing gloves, of course, and get one more in. But we agree on this UFC bantamweight champion, and
it'll
why do
be
you
Kayla.
agree?
It's gonna be Kayla. I mean, she's just like the fights that she's had. I mean, the two fights we've seen her in. Like I said, she's literally walked through both of them. Like won them pretty easily. I mean, she's look at her. She it literally looks. She's built different than every other fighter in that division. I mean, she is a beast. She's a demon. I think the whole bantamweight division should be scared because the only thing that's gonna take her out is herself, is the weight cuts. And if she can deal with that, then she's gonna be champ for I think as long as she wants.
Could not agree more. She has all the tools she needs to gain the belt and then retain it as much as she wants. So that is the
We're
women's divisions in
we're
the
very big
UFC,
Kayla Harrison fans. We've talked
as you
about
can
her
see.
all 3 episodes now.
Yeah, yeah. One
All
you could say
right,
we could. One you could say we're glazing her.
we might be glazing and Practical Joker's legend Kayla Harrison. Um, Next up, men's flyweight. We both agreed on Pantoja.
Yeah. So just to break it down really quick, 2-0 in 2024, first defeating Steve Erceg in a harder than we thought fight. Erceg came to play in that fight, but ultimately had the mistake shooting that takedown in round 5, and Pantoja was able to retain. And then really Pantoja's coming out party. I mean, he was already the champion, but that Asakura performance really put everyone on notice about how much of a star that Pantoja is and how he was getting disrespected in the pound for pound rankings, being so low. Um, he couldn't, his stock grew so much that night. And rolling into 2025, at this point, we're short of contenders. I mean, we'll see what happens with Manel Kopp and Brandon Royval. That will be coming up, I believe, this upcoming year as a main
Yeah,
event, I believe in March. Um, so I would assume that the winner of that fight will fight Pantoja. Um, Potentially Davison Figueiredo dropping back down to flyweight,
Kai Car France.
potentially Kai Car France. I see Alexandre Pantoja walking through them all. I think his pressure on the feet and leading into his takedowns is just too going to be too much for everybody. I think he poses problems for Kai Car France, different problems for Kai Car France, and different problems for Figgy. I just think Pantoja's really coming into his own right now and has really blossomed into an elite fighter that he is.
Yeah, I totally agree. I watching him. There's no way. I don't think anybody can beat him. The only person, maybe, um, even though he did just lose to Roy Vol, I think
That's Tora.
I think Tatsuro Taira could do it. He's really good on the ground as well. I think, like I said, even though he did just lose, he has like 1 or 2 more fights, and I think he could fight Pantoja. I think he has a shot at beating Pantoja. But other than that, I don't think. I don't know. If Royval wins, I don't want to do Royval versus Pantoja 5. Like, he's literally cleared the division. There's no one else. I mean, I feel like one more fight, move him up. Let him fight for double champ at this point.
Potentially.
If we don't know what happens, which is what I will bring up with the next weight class. Bantamweight champions. We did disagree here.
We did disagree. This is coming up this weekend, of course, UFC at 311. Still in LA at the Intuit Dome, the Clippers' new home arena. Um, I'm rolling with Merab Dvalishvili here, and I 100% will be betting on it. I believe last time I looked, he was at plus 240. You're never going to get Merab at a number like that again, and I will be trying to take advantage of that. But to break it down, I do think Umar has the advantage on the feet against Merab, but at the same time, I've thought that about the last 4 opponents that Merab's fought. I thought that about O'Malley. I thought that about Cejudo. I thought that about Piotr Jan. It's never mattered. They all lose the exact same way. Merab's forward pressure, his cardio is his greatest weapon, and he just absolutely terrorizes people with that. I think Umar is the most well equipped to beat Merab. I do think it will be his toughest test, especially with sort of the weird situation we got with it kind of being it's you call this a short notice fight for both of them essentially. This
Yes.
got booked on what, like 4.5, 5 weeks notice, 6 weeks notice.
Yeah.
So that's something to pay attention to for both of them. I think more so Merab. Um, but I just think much like Pantoja right now, he's just rolling on a different level. And I think he has something that to this point no fighter has been able to figure out in that forward pressure and that cardio. And I think that continues this weekend in a hard fought decision win against Umar Nurmagomedov.
Yeah. So I guess it's kind of like a spoiler for our next episode, our predictions for 311. But I am rocking with Umar, and this is not. I know I am a fan of Khabib and Islam and all the Dags. I'm not Dagestani glaze, but I mean, really, when you look at it, Marab hasn't fought someone like Umar. Like he hasn't fought anyone like Umar's discipline and willingness to win. I feel like is so much different than O'Malley or Cejudo. You know what I mean? Because when you look at their camp, they're built to win fights. He's 18-0 for a reason. He hasn't fought the amount of people or the people that Marab has fought, but he did fight Sandhagen. He did beat him pretty easily.
He 5-0'd him. He did.
5-0'd him. It was like 50-47. I mean, he handled Sandhagen, who at the point I thought was the second best striker in the division, and now I would say easily that Umar is probably the second best striker in that division.
That's a hot take.
I don't know. I think he is. His striking is. I mean, it's not O'Malley striking, but it's pretty good. He can go 5 rounds. He's not worried about the takedowns because he's got the wrestling. Obviously, I really think the only advantage Marab has on Umar is the cardio, but I don't think it's going to be a factor. I do think where it's going to be a boring grappling match where Umar wins by decision, or I could see Umar getting a late submission in. But I do think Umar is gonna become the new bantamweight champion, and then Dagestani fighters, he's not gonna fight the rest of the year.
Yeah, I mean, Ramadan coming up after this. Glad that he's fighting in January, along with Islam, of course, because you have the Ramadan layoff a little bit.
Yeah.
As far as the takedowns go in this fight, I do think, yes, I do think Umar's technical wrestling is just as good, if not a tad bit better than Marab's, but I just think Marab is able to swarm his opponents and really overwhelm them enough with the volume of strikes that he throws, whether they're the cleanest or not, and able to get those takedowns, especially against the fence, and then just swarm you on top. So we'll see. We'll see. I'm super
Yeah.
excited for this, and I'm just extremely
We'll save
excited for this.
the rest more like breakdown for the prediction video.
Of course, yeah.
Next one, we both agreed. Will remain champion. There's none of that. He's not going to move up. He's not going to leave the division and go fight at lightweight. That's not happening.
Yeah. So my thing on him moving up, even if he did move up, I still think he would just finish the year as a featherweight champion. I think he fights Volkanovski first. I think he beats Volkanovski. After that, I think he's gonna want to move up. I'll talk about that in a little bit, but I don't think Islam is gonna go up to 170 this year. I don't think it's gonna happen this year. And so I think even if Topuria does get that Islam Makhachev fight at 55, I think he loses that fight, and I think he keeps his belt at 145 and cruises on. I could see him having another 2-fight year, whether it's Volkanovski and then a loss against Islam, or if it's Volkanovski and then rightfully giving Diego Lopez his title shot, if Diego Lopez, of course, wins his potential fight, not extremely official yet, against Yair Rodriguez. Could be a main event this year. We'll see. But if all looks how we think it should, I think Ilia Topuria gets another 2 fights in. And no matter how those fights go, I think he beats Volkanovski first. And I think he ends the year as the featherweight champion. I just don't think anyone at this division has anything for him. He's too complete.
No. The only person that has any shot of beating this guy right now, I'm sorry, Diego Lopez. I know we're friends now, but you don't got it, buddy. Movsar Evloev, I think, is the only person that has a chance of beating this guy, and it'll be by boring, holding him on the ground like he does all his fights. But I think that's how you got to do it. You cannot stand on the feet with this guy, and you got to have really good wrestling if you're going to take him down. And I think Movsar can do that. But then again, like I said, I would still pick Ilya to win that fight. But if anybody's going to do it, it's going to be Movsar.
It's not. It's also not even a guarantee that just on the timeline of the division that Movsar gets a title shot this year.
Yeah.
So whether or not that does happen, we will see. But we, of course, agree Ilia Topuria and still the 145-pound champion in the UFC. Yeah. On to lightweight.
We agreed. My boy Islam.
No shocker here. Break it down, AJ.
I mean, if Armin can't do it, then there's no way in hell that someone else in the division is doing it. Armin is the only guy that can do it right now. I do think it's crazy that he's a lower betting favorite than Marab is. Like they're saying, I think he has a better chance at beating Islam than Marab does at beating Umar. But I still would pick Islam to win. And again, there's no he beats Charles again in a rematch, and then who else is he going to fight after that? He literally beats everyone else.
Yeah, so just on that betting line that you mentioned, Islam Makhachev minus 425 favorite on Hard Rock. Arman Sarukian a plus 275 underdog, and as you mentioned with Marab's money line a plus 240. So yeah, slightly bigger underdog Arman is to Islam than Marab is to Umar, but cannot agree with everything that you said. Islam just keeps on looking better every fight. There have been fights where there have been some things happen where you can kind of maybe see a chink in his armor, um, or just things happen with the Poirier fight. He gets cut. Of course, the first Volkanovski fight a little while back, but all in all, I mean, I just don't see anyone maybe outside of Armin that can match Islam on the ground, can manage distance with Islam on the feet. Um, he's just he just seems like he's levels above, and that's why he's the pound for pound number one fighter in the world right now.
And lightweight goat. And when he beats Armin, he'll be top 5 all time.
That's a take.
Welterweight. This is the only way Islam cannot be in the year's lightweight champ. If Shavkat somehow beats Bilal, and he fights Shavkat, I don't think it'll happen. But I'll let him break it down before I get into
So,
why.
so I didn't do it on the last two, but
Oh yeah.
Bilal Muhammad, of course, winning the title against Leon Edwards, over in England. Weird time situation over there. They were fighting like 5 a.m. local time.
Yeah.
So that was crazy. But Bilal looked absolutely perfect in that fight. He could not have performed better against Leon outside of the last maybe 90 seconds of the fight where he got cut with those elbows on the ground. But that doesn't matter. Of course, scheduled to fight against Shavkat in December. Didn't make it because of the toe infection, the bone infection, which I don't know if you saw that picture, but
It was gnarly, dude.
that was gnarly. That
Yeah,
was
that's
gnarly.
gross.
Nevertheless, we'll see how active he is this year. I'm hoping he gets two in, maybe a summer and a winter like he did this past year. We'll
Yeah.
see. I think as an underdog, he will be against Shavkat. I think he defeats Shavkat. I think that will be his next fight. And then after that, hopefully we get another one in maybe, as I said before, November, Madison Square Garden, or December in Vegas, whether it's a Leon Edwards rematch or maybe a Jack Della Maddalena. We'll see what the rest of the likes of Joaquin Buckley and Kamaru Usman and Ian Gary do this year. But all in all, I was really impressed with how his hands looked in that Leon fight. Um, say what you want about how Leon performed in that fight and how he looked. Bilal outstruck him, and his hands looked fast. They looked crisp. He was talking about how he's got Canelo hands now.
Yeah.
It wasn't after how he fought. That wasn't the craziest thing in the world. And then you just mix that in with his takedowns and him slamming people to the ground and having a great top control whenever he's on the ground, landing strikes, banking rounds as he always has. Um, it seems like Bilal is at that point where he's now won the belt, and you know what they say: whenever you win the belt, you get 30% better. Um, I just think we're really seeing him blossom into his prime, and I think he keeps this thing going in 2025. Whether it's one fight, whether it's two fights, and still Bilal Muhammad remains your welterweight champion.
Yeah. I really do like Bilal, actually. A lot of people don't. I don't get the hate. He's a really cool guy, I think. He's a cool champ. We saw he wants to be active. I mean, he took that fight. He took another fight against, this at that point, the scariest dude in the division, and was ready to fight. So I really like Bilal, but I do think, like I said, I think he does beat Shavkat. I was not impressed with Shavkat's last performance. I think he beats him. And then if JDM can beat Leon Edwards, I think that they said today that's probably going to be the Fight Night London, JDM versus Leon. I think if he beats, he will. He's going to beat Leon because Leon is kind of trash. Not gonna lie.
That's crazy.
Leon could be good, dude. He just doesn't want to. But anyways, JDM will fight Bilal, and I think he does beat Bilal because he's not Leon. He wants to win fights, actually. So he doesn't just win on luck. He actually has the skill.
Sounds like you got something against Leon.
Yeah, I don't know. Leon's just bro, what are you doing? He could be so good, but he just doesn't want to. But I think JDM does beat Bilal. I think Bilal gets 2 fights in, and JDM ends the year as the welterweight champ.
Interesting. I just think with watching that Gilbert Burns fight with JDM, it was a little while ago, and I do think JDM can evolve. But of course, before mounting that comeback against Burns, you saw him kind of struggle on the ground a little bit with Gilbert, kind of look a little lost at times. Frankly, I think Bilal is a whole nother monster on the ground than Gilbert Burns is. All with respect to Gilbert, it's different styles of ground game.
Yeah.
I think Bilal is a motherfucker to deal with if you're on the bottom and he's raining punches and elbows and is switching into positions. So I think that's going to be real trouble for Jack, but we will see. We will see.
We will. And now we got the middleweight champ. We agreed.
No surprise here.
Mr. Hamzat Chimaev.
Yeah, so Dricus Du Plessis, of course, won the belt in January of 2024, beating Sean Strickland, and then defending his title against a heated rivalry at the time with Israel Adesanya, defending his title via submission. Hamzat Chimaev fought in October last year, of course, submitting Robert Whitaker in the first round, breaking his teeth off. That was crazy.
Submission of the year.
You saw how submission of the year, 1,000%, as we talked about before. It just seems like it's Hamzat's time. It's finally, I think we're finally at this point where he's reached this precipice and we can figure out what he can do in a title fight. We've talked about it for years now. We talked about it in different weight classes. If this can get booked, if he can stay healthy, if he can get a fight booked, whether it's in the States or not in the States, I think Hamzat's just gonna overwhelm Dricus, I think, or could be Strickland after February. But I do think Dricus beats Strickland, and then after that, I'm hoping for maybe in October. I know it's a long wait to see Hamzat fight, but that just seems like the most realistic way for it to happen. October, Abu Dhabi. Get Hamzat and Dricus booked, and I think Hamzat ends the year as champion, gets Dricus on the ground, and smothers him as he's done with everyone else.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, the only way I see, Dricus actually winning, he can, but it's because he's got plot armor, man. I mean, this dude is he just wins. Hamzat has, he's trained for as long as who knows, grown up in a war, natural born killer. But then you got to pick DDP by falling piano or something. Dricus just finds ways to win. It's so weird. But I do think Hamzat he's gonna maul him. Dricus is a very good fighter. I think he's one of the best middleweight champs of all time, at least top 5. But it's just Hamzat is on a different level. He could be. He honestly could probably be close to triple champ status right now if he didn't get sick all the time. There's a reason this guy was, everybody was so high on him when he first joined. It's because he has the skill. He is that good, and He's next up. He's not going to fight someone else. I guarantee you he's going to wait for his title shot against Dricus. And he's going to win pretty easily. We got our next weight class, light heavyweight.
Okay. So, of course, our male fighter of the year, Alex Pereira. It's him and Taporia, of course, but Pereira started his year last year at UFC 300 main event, knocks out Jamal Hill in the first round with that left hook after being hit in the nuts. Then saves UFC 303. Of course, what was supposed to be Conor McGregor versus Michael Chandler. Rematch against Yuri Prohaska. Starches him with a left hook to end the first round. Head kicks him into the stratosphere in the second round. Wins that. And then comes up big in a fourth round masterclass performance after having a competitive first few rounds with Khalil Roundtree over at UFC 307 in Salt Lake City. 3-0 in 2024. And I think he's going to retain his light heavyweight belt. I think the first fight of the year should be Magomed Ankalaev. We'll see if it happens, though. We've heard murmurs that it may not be Ankalaev first, that they might go in a different direction. We'll see. But I think Pereira will find a way to knock out Magomed if they fight. Magomed does have great wrestling. He doesn't always use it as much as some people may think he should.
He has no submission wins in the UFC.
No submission wins in the UFC. You saw in the Jan Blachowicz fight, lost the first 2 rounds, arguably 3 rounds in that fight. And then as soon as he started using the wrestling, that's whenever he was able to bring that fight to what would eventually become a draw. And then knocked out Johnny Walker this past year at the start of the first card of last year, I believe. And then, of course, picking up another win, I believe at UFC 308 he fought again. He did, yes. So
he fought Rakic.
Yeah, fought Rakic, beat Rakic, and yeah, he's in line for the title shot. Like I said before, he should be the next, but
I mean, technically was. I mean, he said no, but
yeah. The short notice situation, UFC 303, he did say no. But that being said, I think his unwillingness to use the grappling, he's said it in interviews before that he wants to knock Pereira out standing. We'll
I don't get that. What do these fighters think? Like Yuri, when he was wrestling in the first round a little bit, like he was doing good. All these fighters like, yeah, I want to knock Pereira out. No, don't.
Don't wrestle.
But
so I think that is going to. I think that's going to. I'll let you break down why you think I'm wrong, but I do think his unwillingness to wrestle might be the biggest factor in why he will lose to Alex Pereira. I think Pereira gets at least 2 fights in this year. He's always been active. I think he stays that way. And yeah, and still 2020 end of 2025 light heavyweight champion Alex Poatan Pereira.
Yeah, I do think the UFC is gonna have this fight happen. It's gonna be Magomed versus Alex, and I think I mean really, obviously these guys are good. They're good fighters. They're in the UFC. They're the best fighters in the world. Alex Pereira has not fought anyone like Magomed Ankalaev. Like they're Jamal Hill, Yuri, and
Khalil.
And Khalil, they're good, but they're not. Magomed Ankalaev is better than those guys. I don't feel like that's a debate. He's better than those guys.
He certainly would be a betting favorite against all 3 of them.
Yeah. And I just feel, I know he said he was gonna knock him out, but I feel I think he's lying. I think he's gonna realize he's gonna take him to the ground, and Alex, there's nothing he can do when he's on the ground. I mean, maybe he works on the wrestling, maybe he gets better. But when you're getting taken down by Israel Adesanya, Dagestani dude, a Russian dude, is gonna be able to maul you on the ground. He does have knockout power too. He's able to, he's a hard hitter. Now, obviously, Alex has been hit by hard guys like Magomed and Kalaev, but I just feel Magomed and his stance and his fighting style is really, I think it's a perfect way for someone to beat Alex Pereira. He can find the open shot and land big ones on Alex Pereira. I think I feel like if when they fight, Magomed wins. Um, I think they will do a rematch immediate,
That was
but
going to be my next question.
and in the rematch, I would pick Alex Pereira to win. But with them being Russian and Magomed Ankalaev, he fights literally once a year. He's gonna fight Pereira, and then I feel like he's not gonna fight the rest of the year. He's gonna wait because he's gonna want to
So
only fight in Saudi Arabia or Abu
so
Dhabi.
wait, so your pick kind of has like a little like asterisk next to it if he only fights once next year.
Yeah, if Magomed fights once next year,
Okay, interesting. Glad you gave the perspective on that. Um, Obviously you're picking him as the champ, so you do think he's only going to fight once.
yeah,
But that is interesting that you gave that little prediction on if there was a rematch. So,
I think Alex would win in a rematch.
well, we'll see if it comes to fruition. I'm excited
And
for it regardless. And then
heavyweight,
the heavyweight division.
come on now,
Come
come
on
on.
now. Come on.
There's
So,
no one.
AJ, I'll let you break it down first after
Yeah, I
I
mean,
break down the 2024 that Tom Aspinall
my
had. 1 and
my other
0, Curtis Blades first round knockout. Um, Not much more to say. He was just too fast, too good for Curtis. Um, Sort of a letdown spot for Curtis, but all in all, Tom was gonna. I think Tom had 10 ways to win that fight that night. So Tom got that done, and then now we just move to this complicated and frankly annoying saga that is the
John
question.
Jones.
The question that we all want to know is: will we get Tom Aspinall versus John Jones? AJ, break down why you think Tom Aspinall will end the year as a champion.
Um, even if he does not fight John Jones, and now we're hearing reports that John Jones is just going to retire. He's done. Um, there's no one else, man. He's already beat six out of the top 10 guys, all in the first round. I mean, have you look at heavyweight? It's really all majority blobs. You have a couple like actual athletic specimens like Tom Aspinall, but I mean, he can do everything, man. There's not one like I would say the only flaw is that he can get hit, but I mean he can take a hit and he's gonna his power. I mean he literally is knocked. He dropped and knocked out Curtis Blades with a jab. You know
Literally.
when your jab is that strong, with just to drop someone like that is insane. His jujitsu is crazy. He's like I said, the heavyweight division is blobs, and for someone to be that fast in the heavyweight division, in a division where you got Shamil Gaziev, who looks like he moves in slow motion, I mean, they are. I mean, it's crazy. He is on a different level. Um, I, he, I think the only person that can beat him is John Jones. That's a crazy close fight. It's not like Tom Aspinall runs through John Jones. But if he beats John Jones, or if John Jones is straight up like he's saying, he's just going to retire. He's not even going to fight Tom Aspinall anymore. Then I mean, there's just no one that can beat him. There's no way in hell Cyril Gahn beats him. Um, Volkov, he already beat Volkov, and then Marcin Tybura. Is that who we're going to send at Tom Aspinall? Really?
Who he already beat.
Sergey Spivak,
Who he already beat.
who we already beat. Like, what do we? Jayden Almeida? Come on now. No, don't get in that face.
Yeah,
But
so
yeah,
could not agree more with you. I want to highlight something you said. You mentioned the jujitsu, and that's what I think people are getting lost in the fact that with how well Tom's performing. There you can debate that we're not even seeing the best facet of Tom's game throughout all these great performances that we've seen from him. He's getting these fights done so quickly that we're not seeing his legit black belt level jujitsu. The dude's been doing jujitsu since he was like 3 years old, if not younger. His dad, of course, Andy Aspinall, black belt jujitsu coach in Tom's corner at all times. Um, I just don't see a world where Tom doesn't end up champion, and that's with or without John Jones. Definitely without John Jones. If the John Jones fight doesn't happen, ultimately, what I think the most realistic outcome is he either retires or he, for some reason, gets stripped, and then you just have Tom become upgraded to the heavyweight champion, fights once or twice. Knowing Tom, he likes to be active. I could see him fighting twice this year, unless his only fight is the John Jones. And then, of course, if the John Jones fight happens, you said it's a close fight. It's John Jones. It's everyone. I get it. I do agree. I think John's biggest weapon that you could say he has over Tom is his IQ and his way to study fighters. But how are you going to study Tom Aspinall? He has
Yeah.
he finishes all of his fights in an average time of under 2 minutes now, I believe, after that Curtis Blades fight.
Mhm.
Um, you know, I think John's gonna do everything he can. I think John will be well prepared. I think he will he's well equipped to beat Aspinall if he comes prepared. That
Yeah.
being said,
Well, I was
my
gonna add.
biggest
Can I add? Even if when they fight, and I said it's gonna be a close fight. If John Jones does even beat Tom Aspinall, that's his last fight. He retires. I mean, Aspinall's gonna fight again for the belt, and
yep.
like I already said, he beats everyone. He is
Yeah.
that guy at heavyweight. He's that guy. So even if he
Yeah,
loses
that could
to John
be that
Jones, he's still gonna end the year as champ.
yeah, that could 100% be argued. John has been vocal about how the end is near. And that being said, though, John looked awesome against Stipe. I'm not going to take anything away from John in that fight. It was a 42-year-old Stipe. I get it. I'm still not going to take anything away from John because he did what he was supposed to do against a 42-year-old Stipe. That being said, John looked awesome on the ground. He looked great. I still just think on the feet he's going to be a little too slow. I think he's always on the feet. I think he's always just going to be a one step behind on Tom, and it's not out of the realm of possibility for Tom to catch him with a jab, catch him with that vintage 1-2 that he loves to throw, that he's knocked out multiple people in the top 10 with. Um, so regardless, there's so many scenarios that this could go. I think all of them then with Tom Aspinall at the end of the year as the undisputed, not the interim heavyweight champion of
Yep.
the world, the real heavyweight champ, which I already feel like he is.
I think most
But
people. Well, no. When John wasn't fighting, yeah, but I mean, John fought. He's the undisputed.
yeah, he is. Yeah. But that being said, this can just segue into our next few topics. We're also going to predict a few of the awards that we'll give out next year. Of course, the award show. And let's just start it at the top with male fighter of the year. I'm going with Tom Aspinall.
Yeah.
I could see him getting 2 fights in next year. Dream scenario for him, knocks out John Jones, beats John Jones in whatever fashion possible. That alone, even if he doesn't fight again, you beat John Jones, you're fighter of the year. I don't care. I love Taporia. I love Pineda. Speaking of Pineda, I'll get to him in a minute. But I love Murab. All these got Bilal. You get one win against John Jones, you're fighter of the year. You can book that. That being said, I think that Tom will beat John Jones, hopefully in the summer, International Fight Week. And then I think we get that super fight of Tom Aspinall versus Alex Pereira. I think Tom goes 2-0 on the year, beats John Jones, beats Alex Pereira, and I think Tom Aspinall ends the year as the male fighter of the year and the #1 pound for pound fighter on the planet.
Whoa. Okay. First off, I agree. He will be. I think he could be fighter of the year if that scenario plays out. But I may sound like Dana White here. As long as Islam Makhachev is fighting in the UFC, there's not another number one pound for pound fighter.
You're telling me if that scenario that I just painted out for you, obviously it has to happen, of course.
Yeah.
You're telling me if that doesn't happen, if he beats John Jones, the GOAT, and then beats a top 3 pound for pound fighter in Alex Pineda, who's the darling of the UFC right now, Tom Aspinall is not pound for pound number one in the world.
I mean, like, dude, when you look at pound for pound and you look at skill wise, like a pound for pound, if Islam and Aspinall fought, I'd pick Islam to win. Skill, I think
Such a stupid argument.
that's not a stupid argument. I mean, Islam is just a different breed, man. I mean, as long as he's
There's
fighting
no
and
two better wins that Islam could have at lightweight or at
if he
welterweight
if he
than
beats Armin and then goes up and beats Shavkat, I don't care. Double
that
champ.
is not better than John Jones and Alex Pineda. That's not.
But
I'm
he would,
sorry.
and if he
You know
beats them
that.
pretty handily, because I'll be honest, he's not knocking out John Jones. When he beats him, he's not knocking him out. He's not. He's not. And I mean, Pereira. I mean, maybe he knocks him out. He's been knocked out before. But I can't see it, man. As long as Islam's in the UFC, man, he's on a different level. He's a different fighter, man. I love Tom Aspinall. Like, I love Tom Aspinall. Do not get me wrong. I would want nothing more. Well, I love Islam too. I want them both to succeed. Tom Aspinall, my good buddy, Tom Aspinall.
Instagram stories.
Yeah, I just think Islam is he's just different, man.
Well, we will see. That is the prediction for male fighter of the year. On to the women's fighter of the year. I think we both agree it'll be a repeat. I'm going with Kayla. I'm going back to back women's fighter of the year. Of course, Kayla Harrison. As we stated before, I think she gets
Glazers.
We're glazing. We're glazing.
Yeah, we're glazing tonight.
Yep. Kayla is going to beat Juliana Pena. I think she gets one more in end of the year. Maybe that New York card, maybe October. We will see. I think she goes 2-0. I think she gains the welterweight or not welterweight, the bantamweight title, and then defends it, ends the year as the women's fighter of the year. Not much more to be said on that.
Yeah, I mean, I agree. She's that girl.
And then the last one I really want to throw at you before we get out of here is I'll let you go first on this one. Who do you think is going to be the breakout fighter of the year in 2025?
I got to go with Carlos Prates, honestly.
Interesting, because I could have argued that he was the breakout fighter. I think there's an argument to be made that he could have been in that running this past year. Obviously, Joaquin Buckley was our breakout fighter of the year. But I think Carlos Prates, depending on how you look at it, I do kind of get it for 2025 as well. But someone that
maybe Marcel Rufi, him too. I'll throw him up there.
Yeah, Rufi could be up there. I'm going in a different direction. We're gonna talk about him. We're gonna talk about him more this upcoming week. I'm going with Peyton Talbot. I think Peyton Talbot has all the tools in the world to really break out and really get on the scene this upcoming year at bantamweight. I think he takes care of Barcelos this upcoming weekend in incredible fashion. I think after that, he'll either break into the rankings or he'll be one fight in before he gets into the rankings. Hopefully, fingers crossed, he gets 2, if not 3 fights this year, ends the year ranked, and potentially having fought a seasoned veteran at bantamweight, such as potentially a Cheeto Vera, a Rob Font, there's some other veterans in there that could be named, but one of those two would be really fun. Anybody that's in that lower ranking of bantamweight, I think Peyton Talbot could really step on the scene and show out and really catch some eyes. And also, he's super marketable. He does really well with his YouTube channel. His YouTube channel is awesome. Social media is
Yeah,
really funny. He has all the traits to really break out.
I
But the
mean, bro,
performances matter the most, and I
he
think
brought
that
he
that's
brought
gonna happen.
he brought Frank Ocean out of the shadows, man, out of hiding. Like that's pretty crazy. The only thing I would pick him. I think he can do it. And dude, he finished that fight at 302 or 303 in 13 seconds. Took zero damage. Did not fight the rest of the year. What are you doing, dude? You had, I mean, crazy knockout in the first round in the first couple seconds. Where you take zero damage and you don't fight the rest of the year. What
Yeah, I mean, who
what's up with
knows? There's always injuries behind the scenes. There's always injuries that happen in
yeah?
camps and in sparring and in training. So I'll
He's
give
just
him the benefit of the doubt on
he's got
that.
to
I'm
fight
not
it. He's got
gonna,
to fight it.
but I think him fighting in January really sets him up to be active, fighting early in the year. Um, I think it gives him enough time. If he wanted to do 3 fights, I think that gives him enough time in between each. Get one in January, get one early summer, and then get one in the fall or winter. I think that's more than reasonable to say that that's could realistically happen. So that was my breakout fight of the year. And with that being said, that is the episode. We've got a great 2025 coming up. And of course, our next episode will be our predictions for UFC 311, Mahashev versus Sarukian, Dvalishvili against Nurmagomedov, and so many others. So we'll catch you on that episode.
Yep.